Something strange is brewing around Meghan Markle, and for once, it isn't just tabloid noise. This time, the chatter cuts deeper than wardrobe critiques or family spats. Broadcaster Megyn Kelly, noting claims already circulating for years, has reopened a storyline that, if even partly true, would be one of Meghan's worst nightmares. It started with a quaint, nostalgic clip Meghan posted. Child Meghan, pretending to be queen. Innocent enough, right? But instead of softening public perception, it triggered frame-by-frame scrutiny. And with that came a familiar whisper. Her age. Not how she dresses, not how she smiles. Her actual birth year. Meghan has long said she was born in 1981, placing her in her early to mid-40s. Yet, when critics line up public records, school photos, and reunion chatter, the timeline, so they argue, turns murky fast. We're not talking about a stray typo here or there. Online sleuths point to a pattern of dates, documents, and appearances that, they claim, don't sit neatly with 1981. Megyn Kelly didn't invent the rumor, but she did say the quiet part out loud. Is Meghan older than she says? And if so, why hide it? Now, to be crystal clear, shaving a few years is hardly unheard of in Hollywood. But Meghan isn't just an actress anymore. She's a duchess, a global figure placed under a microscope. If elements of her official story were sanded down to present a fresher royal narrative, the questions get bigger, not smaller. One image pouring fuel on the fire. An old Northwestern University salsa club group photo. On its face, it's harmless, students hanging out, but observers note that many in the shot were reportedly born in the early 70s, putting them in their early 50s today. Meghan, if you accept the 1981 date, should have been nearly a decade younger than most of that circle. Yet in the photo, say the skeptics, she looks right at home. Same vibe, same energy, same age bracket. On its own, it proves nothing. Add it to edited alumni mentions, vague yearbook references, and social groups that seem just a hair out of step with her stated timeline. And you begin to understand why people ask questions, even if the answers remain unproven. Then there's the Archibald birth certificate wrinkle. Initially, it reportedly listed Rachel Meghan Markle. Later, the entry was updated to Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. To supporters, that's a style correction. To critics, changing a formal document, especially a birth certificate, is not typical. And it tees up a larger worry. If this can be quietly altered, what else could be? Again, none of this on its own establishes wrongdoing. It's the pattern story that takes hold, an image curated so tightly it leaves no room for inconvenient facts. This is where the narrative widens from birthdays to biography. Meghan has always been described, even by her fans, as a master of reinvention. But critics now wonder if the reinvention was more comprehensive than anyone realized. The underdog actress who fell in love with a prince, braved a hostile institution, and emerged as a global humanitarian. An immaculate story. Look closer, detractors say, and the edges blur. Alumni rosters get cross-checked. Former classmates pop into forums with foggy recollections that don't quite sync with her official dates. One person remembers Meghan at a campus event in the late 90s that would be oddly timed. Another insists she was already working corporate jobs while supposedly still at university. None of these anecdotes is a smoking gun. Stitched together, they form a backdrop people find hard to ignore. Complicating matters is Meghan's tone when challenged. She's rarely straightforward on basic facts. Interviews that should clarify often complicate. Either the answers feel overly rehearsed, or the topic pivots to emotion. Remember the Oprah sit-down, how certain points were fiercely emphasized while others floated past? When someone avoids simple specifics but leans heavily on feeling, curiosity spikes, especially when that someone is already a lightning rod. Defenders call this a witch hunt. They argue Meghan is targeted because she doesn't fit a traditional mold. But the core of the current scrutiny isn't skin color, accent, or style. It's authenticity. Was the public sold a version of a person that wasn't entirely real? If fans and fair-minded observers begin to feel misled, trust evaporates quickly. That's when you start hearing heavy phrases, PR stunt, narrative management. Meghan's brand rests on authenticity, vulnerability, telling her truth. If the foundation appears shaky, everything built on it starts to wobble. Add in the old resume oddities, circulating credits with fuzzy dates, overlapping roles, and geography that didn't quite add up. When she was a B-list actor, none of that drew fire. Once you marry into royalty, every comma gets audited. That's the risk of retroactive storytelling. After you become a global figure, people don't just listen, they investigate. A fuzzy dateline becomes a headline. An updated certificate becomes Exhibit A. Even silence invites interpretation. Meghan's silence on the age rumor stands out. No denial, no confirmation, just nothing, perhaps hoping it fades like others before it. This time it doesn't feel like it will. The question has shifted from what might be hidden to why. And why is the most dangerous question of all. Another thread. The sense Meghan is always one beat ahead of scrutiny. Interviews timed just so. Social posts curated to neutralize narratives. Legal letters dispatched to muzzle speculation. Smart public relations or choreography that feels a bit too prescient. When the public senses orchestration, even tiny inconsistencies take on outsized weight. Skeptics move from "what's off" to "was any of it ever straightforward?" Her schooling timeline is a favorite battleground. Officially, Northwestern in the late 90s into the early 2000s. Yet club rosters, archived newsletters, and casual photographs sometimes place her in social mixes with cohorts notably older than herself. People who had already graduated before her stated enrollment window. That may be benign, it may be a red flag. Stack it beside acting career haze. Casting calls attributed to years' productions weren't active. Credits tied to shoots in places she wasn't publicly linked to. And you see why conspiracy chatter thrives online. Any one piece can be clerical error. Pile them high, and you get smoke, even if there's no confirmed fire. Then, the digital footprint question. For someone born in 1981, the early 2000s internet should have left a trail. MySpace pages, clunky blogs, campus forums, stray photos. There's remarkably little. Some of that can be chalked up to good privacy hygiene. Some of it looks, to critics, like a scrub. In an age when even high school yearbooks find their way online, an overly pristine archive breeds suspicion, especially if your brand trades on radical transparency. What truly rattles people isn't the stray inconsistency. It's how much of Meghan's story rests on belief. You're asked to accept sweeping claims, not because they're documented, but because they're delivered with polish and conviction. That worked, until it didn't. When emotion stops covering the bill, the audience wants receipts. If Meghan really did adjust her age at some point, whether for casting, for a neater royal optics arc, or simply to control her image, then critics will argue the edit occurred at the source code. And if the date of birth can be treated as flexible, they'll ask what else could be? Relationships? Upbringing? Even the timeline of the royal rupture? Once doubt creeps in, it spreads. It's an ugly irony. Meghan has long cast herself as the truth-teller battling media distortion. Yet the more people comb through her past, the more they say they find airbrushing, not just in photos, but in facts. Perhaps that's unfair. Perhaps it's the inevitable tax of fame. Perhaps it's both. But this much is clear. The culture is moving from believe the brand to verify the biography. And when verification lags, the crowd writes its own story, rightly or wrongly. Two final notes, because they matter. First, much of what fuels this discussion remains unverified. Claims, interpretations, forum recollections. Absence of proof is not proof of anything. Second, public figures deserve a measure of privacy, even when they trade in publicity. But in a world built on receipts and timelines, the surest way to quiet a rumor is with documents, not monologues. If Meghan wants this particular narrative to end, nothing will do it faster than clean, consistent, verifiable records and calm answers to simple questions. Until then, the whispers won't vanish. They'll calcify, not because the public is cruel, but because the public has learned, after too many polished stories, to ask for more than perfect lighting and a persuasive close-up.